Hello and welcome to another classical music podcast. My guest today is one of my oldest friends since the competition circuit days, Sergey Ostrovsky. Sergey's bio is so replete with accomplishments that I'm not going to try to summarize them, but I will talk about the different. We will talk about the different facets his professional life has taken on as professor, as the first violinist of a world-renowned string quartet, as the concertmaster of numerous orchestras, and of course as soloist. Sergey, welcome and thank you for making time for us.
Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where are you watching this. I'm very happy to be with my friend on this broadcast.
I want to point out Sergey is joining us from Geneva. So it is what, 9 o'clock for you, yeah?
9 o'clock.
Okay. It's still a reasonable time.
Good.
I usually start these conversations by telling the guest a little bit about the people to whom they are talking. The Kirov Academy's goal is to create an atmosphere reminiscent of the Central Music School at Samsha. An academics plus ballet or academics plus music or just plain academics school in the heart of a major city in DC. So the kids who go to Kirov, the people who are considering going to Kirov, their parents, very often are considering getting very deeply involved into a world with which they may not have a lot of familiarity. So one of the main things I want to do with these podcasts is to give people insights into all sorts of aspects of our lives about which they may not have known, questions they may not have known to ask, right? And right away, I want to start with you. Like I said, given the number of different hats that your career has worn, the number of different chairs on which you've sat, I want to start about talking about that and how you got led to this multifaceted life. Did it start at the conservatory? Did it start on the circuit? How did it start?
Well, maybe one of the advantages and disadvantages I had as a student or a young player, I wanted all at once. I wanted to be soloist, wanted to play in chamber music, I wanted to lead orchestras, and even to conduct. And with the age, it became also a very strong will to teach. And like this, after creating the Aviv String Quartet when I was
What
21 years old, I was already leading some professional orchestras, and so I kept preparing for international solo competitions, which I believe that I still believe did benefit to a quartet, as I was always in shape, and then everything, leading the orchestras, conducting, teaching, everything is connected. And I think you're a better teacher if you do it all. You're better concertmaster if you do it all. And I don't consider myself a experienced conductor, but of course, most of my experience as conductor, I take from playing chamber music and teaching and working and listening.
and certainly
Yeah,
playing
so
under many conductors, both as concertmaster and as soloist.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. And I I have this quality. I never want to give up projects. So if I end up uh, having them one on another, and which created, well, in normal days, yeah, not today, but in normal days, which created uh, enormous stress sometimes with traveling. But everything is possible. I did play double Brahms straight from the flight, double Brahms concerto once. I did play Tchaikovsky competition, and between first and second round, I flew to Salzburg to play with my string quartet, with the Aviv quartet. We played in Mozarteum. So I just remember morning I started playing the first round of Tchaikovsky competition. Then my suitcase was already in the airport. by that time, and I still didn't have the visa back because for Israelis we
Yeah, you
needed
had.
back then to get a visa. Yeah, now it's much better, but yeah. So I flew to Salzburg in the evening. When I landed, it's just possible. It's just too strong of the
Change. Too
contrast
strong. Yeah,
after crazy Moscow, and completely uh,
calm
cozy,
and
like a theater, like opera. Yeah, it's looked like I'm in the opera. Little mise-en-scène by Mozart opera, yeah, in Salzburg. Yeah. So
the
yeah, so I tried to do it all,
the
but of
switching of
course later
gears.
need to do it.
The switching of gears is a whole skill set by itself. I mean, I never had a chamber music activity, but switching from even performing to competing is a totally different thing. So what was that? No, it wasn't the same Paganini where you and I met, but I remember filling
We
in.
met Paganini.
We met at Paganini, but that was a different year. A couple of years later, when I was back, I was at the Paganini days after filling in for my mother. So
Mm,
she fell, she broke her leg, and I had to play Beethoven concerto. And then 2 days later, I'm in Genoa, and it's Brahms concerto and Paganini concerto and a bunch of other repertoire. And
Paganini.
the mental shift from I just need to play well, I need to play for myself, the conductor, the audience, to okay, this is a competition.
Mm,
You have to play.
where
Yeah,
you are judged. Yeah, and
it's it's not something I think that either you or I could ever describe sufficiently. My mother described her competition experiences to me throughout all my years growing up. Your father was a violinist?
is the pianist, my
Pianist,
father,
sorry.
and they by the way they played together.
My mother and your
They
father,
played
yes.
together. Yes, they did the camera concert Berg
Yeah. Oh, dear God.
for violin, piano, and 13 winds.
Yeah. Her capability of playing Berg is not something I inherited from my mother. But when when I was growing up from age 10 to age 20, she I knew all of her competition stories by heart. And yet the first time I went to a competition, it had no like everything I knew was completely irrelevant. I was there like somebody who didn't know what was going on, you know.
I met you first time in my life. I saw you was in Moscow actually. When I was 15 years old, I came to listen to Tchaikovsky competition in 1990,
Oh, that was
and
my first
you were
competition.
playing Bach Chacon, and I really remember it so well. It was fantastic
Which was, by the
Chacon.
way, that was the first and last time I played Bach Shakot in a competition,
Yeah. I was
But
15 with my mother. We came to listen.
it was I didn't remember that, but that was my first competition. That was exactly that experience that I was just thinking about, where I went there. My mother was a Tchaikovsky winner, with Tchaikovsky laureate, and it was such an alien experience. I had zero idea, and it wasn't for years that I
Yeah.
began to understand. The next time you and I met was in Genoa, right?
No, next time was in Paris on Jacques Thibault competition in 1999.
Wow, that one I got kicked out right away, didn't I?
Yes, in 19, no, but that one where we actually realized that we have a huge history of our parents, and then since then we actually started keeping in touch.
The whole competition circuit is one that I've talked about with other guests. I'm still addicted to it. It's a whole
Me too.
lifestyle, I think.
Me too. Now it's my students who
Right.
are
Tell me,
presenting
tell me if
themselves.
you feel the same thing when you send a student to a competition. You remember that feeling when you've played the round and you're waiting for the results and you are dying of nerves and
Mm,
you can't do anything about it. You've already played. And it's the
yeah.
same thing when I send a student to a competition. Everything I could
It's
do, I've
much
done.
worse. It's
It's much
much worse because then already at the round you cannot do anything else. It's finally them who are playing,
Yeah.
and
Well, how do you cope with that, by
the
the way?
whole work you do. Well, you don't. Finally, like we have to trust ourselves. We have to trust our students. In a way, they do the work. Fine. It's not only concentration, but I must say that I didn't have a huge experience of sending my students to international competitions, but yet I did, yeah, waiting for the results and getting the news from them, and yeah, even for small things which
Oh, especially
they're
for small
playing
things.
for orchestras or
Especially for
for
small things where
orchestras
you,
who play solo, and then
yeah.
mm,
I'm recalling the looks on professors' faces, at Tchaikovsky, at Queen Elizabeth, the big competitions where the professors would come with their students, and people are,
yeah.
you know, whispering, rumors are flying, people are on cell phones, what's going on. The the panic on grown people's faces impressed me even then. You know.
Yeah, I was really, I must tell you, sorry, because now it's really, the Professor Venjin, who was
Oh yeah, yeah,
president
Christoph.
of competition Hanover. So for many years he was, and I was participating there back in the 2000s, and I was in semifinals, and I remember him being the boss, really mastering the situation and everything. And then many years after, or some years after, here in Geneva, when I was already concertmaster of orchestra de la Suisse Romande, we accompanied finals of the Sing in Geneva international competition. It's international competition every year for another discipline, so that was singing, and it was his daughter who was singing in the finals. Anna sang very well, and I remember her performance. So he came naturally to support her,
Hmm.
and then we were waiting all for the results. I was just curious to see how it will turn out, and he was with his wife
Of course.
waiting for the results of the other. And I found it very amusing to see how him, who was in my memory was such a boss in this situation, where he really knew everything what's going on with all the jury, who is what, and here he was completely uh, without any control, and
Isolated.
he was waiting, trying to stay cool. So I was see I really like somehow enjoyed seeing him, normal person who's waiting for the results for his daughter. But
We
I
we
think
are we are
if
definitely,
kids, it's even harder.
yeah, of course, because because it's your flesh and blood. But we are definitely,
Yeah.
uh, we have misconceptions of what the people on that side of the table go through, and until you're on that side of the table, it's
Mm.
very difficult to describe. You've sat on
Um,
juries, you know. Yes, you've sat on juries.
yeah, yes, definitely.
Were there any surprises?
Few juries. Yes, I did.
Did you have any surprises with?
I wasn't. Yeah, yeah. I was once in the youth Tchaikovsky competition, and I was just watching how the big masters of the jury, how did they do in enormous ways for students. I was just watching this as a master class. I knew that I know nothing about it to be a juror.
I found one thing did surprise me. Um, so I imagined that behind the jury table, some people will be there to play politics. Some people will be there to listen and try to pick the best. Some people will be there to make friends with other jury members and make alliances. Um, one thing I did not expect, tell me if you did, is when you do have a candidate that you feel good about, that you want to support, and you talk to another jury member and you find that they do not like that candidate or that they're kind of on the fence. I suddenly found that um, the very same things that I might say as a contestant or an observer, I could not say precisely because I was a juror. Because if I say the wrong thing to you, you like John James and I hate John James, or you hate John James and I like John James. If you say the wrong thing to me, if I say the wrong thing to you, all of a sudden I have gotten John James the opposite vote of what I wanted them to get. Right?
Yeah,
Did you
well,
find
this
this?
is this is the well, this is way too for I'm just I'm an amateur juror, you know. I'm not a professional juror. But you know what I found actually surprising, unfortunately, and what I find surprising also in the entrance exams and all kind of juries where we have certain level. Well, everyone understands that this is not yet. The international top level, but we have some level. And then we have someone who is suddenly really
Above.
extraordinary and really buff and starting to really play as a personality and really something to talk. It's totally different league for me. And then some colleagues, which I do respect, start to say, yeah, but you know, all the Sforzandi was in the wrong places and the Crescendi was not written in the original. And I said, "Well, wait, but why are we going into the details now? While for me, it's another level of playing. It's just totally another level of playing. And I understood, and then I understood this a little maybe too late because I understood what was actually bothering in my playing in international competitions where I
Right.
was presenting myself. Uh, uh, some certain, as they called it, pretentiousness, as they said, "Oh, why he's so sure." It happened to me that I usually prepared alone to the competitions. Yes, I prepared with teachers for some of them, but um, most of them it came after summer, so after I don't know. Or Tchaikovsky, I was 32, you know, so of course I didn't have any teacher, but I bought myself a camera and I was really taping myself, but every day run throughs
That,
and
by the way, is that is a
small
wonderful piece of
things
advice. Let's
and
just
it,
let's just take a moment. Let's just take a moment. That is a wonderful piece of advice right there that I want to underscore. That you took a camera and you recorded yourself daily in
yeah,
preparation
really
for this.
every day of preparation, and sometimes I did the whole round without piano. It was okay, but I was and then I forced myself watch it because no, you're not always very eager to watch it again
Yeah.
what we just played because especially if you did feel good about it. No, but it's very important because first of all you see not only bad things but you see the good things and you see things in proportion because certain things which you thought that they succeeded, they didn't, and certain things that you thought that they're completely wrong and destroyed the whole performance, they didn't destroy the whole performance. They were like little things which you shouldn't have bothered and
Right.
ruined your spirit
Your mood
up
on
to the end of
stage.
the competition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is very, very important. This is how I prepared for Tchaikovsky competition. I think, and I was very well finally prepared for this. And so while I was playing, always presented myself, maybe pretentiousness of musician and artist was bothering because they didn't compare me to
Other
other
students.
students who were like
Right.
17, 18, girls who played just right, everything fine. Yeah, they compared me directly to some good recordings they have in mind. Like one exam I played, I remember I played Chrysler Recitative and Sketch and played it. It was my first time I played, ran it through, but it was just a passing exam, so I didn't bother. I played fine. And the guy in the jury came and said, I have a recording of Chrysler, so he plays better.
Well,
Great. I
thank you for
mean,
comparing. Thank you for
so
comparing me
why
to
do you
Chrysler,
compare?
Professor.
this is, yeah, thank you for comparing it. But this is what happens if
No,
they do
I think it
compare
happens. Two things
to
happen.
sharing after this.
One thing is that you get compared. You're, let's say, an older contestant, and you get compared to, Chrysler, which is a losing comparison. In any case, because you're being compared to the person's memory of Chrysler, which. But the other side is that in a field of people who are putting themselves there for the jury's judgment, you are saying, I don't want your judgment. I have my own idea. And right there, that's going to rub people very much the wrong way. I've got two instances that match yours. One
Yeah.
with me and one with somebody else. There was a contestant. Do you know Joseph Lendvai?
Yes, of course.
I Joseph has a technique that is unbelievable.
Yeah,
Always good.
natural, just born fiddler.
Just born with the violin in his hands, playing
Uh,
Last Rose of Summer.
yeah.
I remember at Paganini competition. I don't remember if it was the one that. I don't think it was the one that you and I were in.
No, no.
But I remember at one he played 17th Caprice, where the octaves were at the tempo of the Tchaikovsky Concerto.
$152.
Perfectly clean, perfectly clear, absolutely controlled, just jaw dropping, and he was eliminated from the first round. And
Happens.
after I completed the competition, and in talking to the jury, I didn't want to ask questions about myself so much as I wanted to ask about him. And I said, why did you eliminate this guy from the first round? He seems to be Paganini reincarnated. And more than one jury member said something that basically comes down to he was arrogant. One jury member said, the octaves are not written four times faster. Another jury member said, well, he was just showing off. And I'm like, it's the Paganini competition. But the point isn't that it's Paganini or it's Mozart competition. The point is that in a field of contestants, you have to be head and shoulders, but in a certain kind of way, head and shoulders above. And he
Mm.
was showing himself to be of a different category
Yeah,
altogether.
yes. But that very much depends on the intelligence and I think certain level of priorities for the judges. Once I took part in Indianapolis competition, and where it was a fantastic win by Barnabas Kelemen, and uh, and I remember Mozart concerti, which in that year I found that the level at the beginning of the competition promised much more than
Mm-hmm.
what we heard in Mozart concerti. Six contestants, and it was quite boring, I must say. Everybody, and without mentioning the names which are playing today quite widely, it was quite boring. And then Barbash played the A major concerto, played it uh, completely out of his mind. I didn't, I never would play anything like this in my life, but that was first time with it was some real music, and the audience didn't like it so much. They were very cold, but I could understand why this was so great. They all the dynamics, well, dynamics are not written there much,
Yeah.
but I could see opera maybe in the modern production, but I could definitely opera, all these changes and differences, and it was so dynamic from the beginning to the end. I was amazed, and I came to him, and he said, and said, I think they really hated it here, and he got first prize for Mozart, everything later on, but at that moment he didn't know yet. But I happened to speak to Jody Pauk
Mm-hmm.
that well, about my performance, but he said, and I must say, I really didn't like how Barnabas played Mozart, but that was genius how he played.
Do you remember the
And
Do you remember the Leonard Bernstein, Glenn Gould's Brahms concerto, where
letter.
where Bernstein where Bernstein came out and disavowed the soloist's interpretation?
Yeah, yeah.
The same
Yes.
thing where I disagree completely, but this is genius.
Yeah, that's what he said. I didn't like at all how he played Mozart, but that was genius. And so this is ability of a great musician like George Pauk to appreciate another opinion, maybe even if it's not his own, or he would play or close to his heart this way
It's
of
also
playing.
a matter of context because I'm sure that Pauk would have reacted slightly differently if that were the only Mozart that he heard. But that was a Mozart that he heard
Yeah,
among five others, and it stood out in a way that
yeah,
he could not
last
deny.
Mozart. Yes,
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I
absolutely.
was very happy to. I was very happy that finally this professional. Emil, shall we answer?
Yes,
We have a question
I want to
here.
point out two things to watchers. First of all, questions are the floor is open to questions throughout our conversation. So exactly as Rory just posted a question, feel free to post at any time. We may get to it immediately. We may finish the thought and then get to it. But this is very timely. The different opinions of different teachers, especially when it comes to Bach. I think Rory, by the way, the danger in competitions doesn't come from Bach. It comes more from Mozart, as Sergey was just saying, and from Beethoven.
Yeah, that's why actually in the competitions I don't understand one thing. Like really taking part in many competitions and well yourself as well. I don't understand two things. First of all, why in the first round they ask Bach, Mozart, Paganini? Like first of all, Bach. This is partially will answer now Rory question, but we will go deeper into it. No one knows how to play it exactly, but everyone knows how not to play. I mean, people
Yes, that's actually a great way of putting
people
it.
really sure. Oh no, this is not Bach. I mean, as if Bach really told them how to do it. Uh, so Bach is not played today in recitals much. Only maybe encore, Sarabande, G minor, yeah, after the concerto, or maybe Andante from the second sonata. Yeah, that's all what we hear. When last time did we hear in the recital, if it was not in the school, C major fugue, or I don't know. Where did you hear first partita? I mean, in the recitals by I don't know Kavakos, Sophie Mutter, man, like some big people don't play it. So because everyone knows how not to play it, so they don't want to go into danger zone, the big songs. Now, what about us? Why shall we or our students present in the first round Bach, which anyway everyone has another opinion about? Now we're talking about Paganini caprices. Okay, this is very
Well,
specific repertoire, I must say.
but what is your
Yeah,
answer to
and also,
what is your answer to why
I
Bach is in the first round? What do you think is the reason?
I really would not. If I would organize a competition, I would never put Bach in the first round.
I can
I would
answer.
make it as an optional piece. I can offer it to choose as an optional piece.
Mhm.
Solo, you can play you can play the Chrysler Scherzo, you can play whatever you want on or back if you really feel convinced about the way of today that you play Bach. But obliged to play Bach, which is not anymore in the recital programs of today. Paganini, which is not anymore in the recital programs of today, as this is very specific repertoire. And Mozart Concerto, which is accompanied by piano, which is nothing to do. By the way, the competition we met Paganini in January 2001. I was criticized because Mozart Concerto played in the more toward the sonata style and not as a concerto. And we played, as you remember, in a conference hall of 100 people.
It is one of the driest rooms.
Very low ceilings. So
It is dry. It is
yeah,
small.
who would crash it to the concerto mode? I mean, of course, I played it. Maybe. So to answer the question of about Bach, um, yeah. Different opinions it's good, but finally it's you to play, and you should be convinced today about playing Bach this way or another, listening a lot, reading a lot, being inspired by different. For example, for me, very inspiring to listen how solo violin Bach played on guitar.
Oh yes,
I
huge,
love it.
huge and eye-opening experience. Definitely my
I
my
love it. Love
my
the
piece of
chords.
advice.
Love the intimacy of it. Chacon
But
on
love the
Chacon
independence of
on
voices. You're
guitar.
not you can bring out the middle. The Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. It's so inspiring. First sonata, they're on YouTube. There are millions of course, Chacon is the most played on guitar. But everything, I mean, it's for me, it's very inspiring when it's played. Much more inspiring, for example, this, than to hear Chacon version Busoni on
Yeah,
piano, which I grew up
it's a
with
different
because I
piece.
come from
It's a
the
great piece.
yeah, but I'm coming from the pianist family where everyone played it. So, and I grew up with this huge
Do you know?
organ,
Do you know that when
like,
I do you know that when I restarted Bacchanalia last year, almost a year ago, do you know that we
yeah.
programmed that the Busoni Bach Chacon for string orchestra? There is an arrangement for string orchestra
Mm,
by the first violinist of the Curtis Quartet.
mm,
It is
nice.
unbelievable. It's a different piece. I mean, it's the same piece, but it's a different piece.
Yeah,
But
but
it's
it's a different.
unbelievable.
It is a different music, but I
Like the
think I think in order to play Bach, there is no way of, and I don't think there is a hope to solve all the problems today as a player. But I can say that toward the age of 40, I started liking playback on stage and really enjoying Chacon, really enjoying. I learned when I was 41, I learned the third sonata and played for the first time in public by heart with this C major fugue, and I enjoyed it so much. And really, this was an performance experience which I didn't have when I was a student and played on all these competitions where you're judged for playing too baroque or too romantic or too,
Rory had a
you have
follow
to
up
have your
question,
opinion
like
because really
which
everyone will tell
opinion
something.
she had a follow up question with which opinion should she follow when when the teachers have such different opinions. And my short answer is that what Sergey was just saying, that everybody knows how not to play Bach. First and foremost, follow that. Don't play Bach in ways that everybody agrees is bad. Whether that's authentic or not, I think is not even relevant. It's not a matter of what does Bach want; it's what does the music want. And if you are in a competition situation, then the question is, what does the judge want? Um,
Yeah, so then in the competition, it's just your luck if you have the six judges who are approximately same idea as yours about playing. But I feel like in any other music and Mozart and Beethoven and stuff, you should be convinced yourself about this today.
Absolutely.
Okay, then maybe you can. But this is a very good example. Once I was in the festival in France organized by George Pludermacher, the pianist, who used when he was young to play with Nathan Milstein. And I asked, how was Milstein? I love Milstein, really. Like, I love his, you know, straightforward playing and no bullshit interpretation like this. And he said, yeah, he was fantastic. He was so sure about what he's doing today. Tomorrow, he was sure about completely something else. And when I asked him, Mr. Mashtan, you asked me to do the diminuendo here. He said, no, how can you do diminuendo here? No, 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 diminuendo. No, of course, stay for till then.
have you have you
So
never had this?
this is a great example.
Have you never had this
Of
experience where
course,
you're
of
teaching a
course.
lesson and you ask the student what idiot put that fingering or that bowing in, and they say you did?
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah. And I love this face when it's so when they smile and look
Yeah,
at you like, that was you. No, no,
but that
but
was me
this time,
yesterday.
that's
That
fine.
was
This one,
me
that's fine.
last week.
No, but listen, this is okay. Someone told me that, about Milton. It's so adorable. The guy who was a close friend of Milton in Toronto, Canada. So Milton came to play Dvorak concerto. So he gave this man seat in the first row, in the front row. He said, "But you come every night, okay?" So he played 4 times and changed fingering every day. Every day he plays something else, and something which worked. Then he looked at him and said, so looked at him. So this is so adorable. That was Milstein, because Milstein always were searching and looking, and we are
All,
talking about when he was not that young anymore. So
but
so I think
this is one of the things on which all the Milstein stories agree. Anybody coming to meet Milstein backstage, at home, doesn't matter, would find him with a violin in his hands.
yeah, he was very much.
Always.
But this conviction to be today absolutely convinced by the way you play. It's important, especially also if you are leader of the quartet or orchestra or a soloist or a conductor. Moravinsky, the great conductor of Leningrad, St. Petersburg Philharmonic Orchestra, he said, "You have to be convinced today in order to convince the public. Tomorrow you can change, but today by playing." And getting back to Bach, I must say, which my favorite version of Bach is. May I? I like very much the Johnny Gendelsman version on YouTube, where he plays all sonatas and partitas in one of the universities in the United States, like this, as a concert, live from the beginning to the end. And he's talking between each partita and presenting it in such a natural way. Johnny Gendelsman is a violinist in New York of Brooklyn Rider Quartet, is Grammy winner of Silk Road Ensemble, and like his. I really recommend to go to YouTube to find him there and to listen. He also recorded cello suites arranged for violin. But this I must say I didn't listen to everything. But violin sonatas and partitas, I really it's really inspiring experience to hear
I,
him play, especially as he didn't do any breaks. He just played it straight.
yeah. But I have to say, you're the first violinist who has a specific one rendition of Bach that they will have as their favorite, because every time someone asks me, again, I have a very clear idea of the kind of Bach that I don't want to hear. But the kind of Bach that I really, really want to hear, I have not heard from any violinist, including myself, of course. Um, but I have heard from a pianist, and that would be Dino Lipati. For me, that is the perfect Bach.
Mhm.
It is sort of, it is a
Fantastic, but
Bach that
yeah.
is inevitable. It is a Bach that is not, flat and emotionless, but it is completely decorous. It is within the bounds of the
Mm.
instrument. At no point does it turn to Liszt.
Again, I must say that saying that I really like Johnny's performance of this. This is not doesn't say that I would play exactly like him everything. All the fugues and stuff. I mean, in a general concept of Bach, it really talks to me what he's doing. But it's if you hear me after and don't tell me, I really you liked him, but because you play completely different.
Well,
That's normal. Brahms concerto also. Maybe certain performances I've played different from
the very
performances I
thing that
like.
you are maybe modeling your performance on is still going to be a memory in your head when you are performing. So
Yeah,
you are going to perform your own version, which is colored by, but not, completely shaped by, all these violins.
inspired
Inspired.
by. We would say inspired by. Yeah.
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 I want to get to the other chairs on which you've sat, the concertmaster chair, especially when we're talking about doing it differently on Tuesday than you did on Monday. But before I do, I just want to round out this competition talk with something that I just saw on Facebook literally minutes before we started today's podcast, which I think is utterly brilliant and summarizes at least my competition experiences. I think it summarizes yours too in one meme. So this is a list in Russian of how to describe a performance when you want to either kill off a contestant as a jury member, or when, as a jury member, you want to support a contestant and bring them to a prize. So the exact same performance If you want to bury the contestant, you say, it was too rough. If you want that same performance to get a prize, you say, it was energetic. If you want to kill the performance, dry, unemotional. If you want to give a prize to the same performance, in a strict manner. If you want to kill off a performer, it was vulgar. If you want to support a performer, it was emotional. It was a pale sound. It was a beautiful touche. It was somehow rushed. It was played in one breath. You divided and fragmented the form. You gave attention to details. There were a lot of extra movements. It was free and uninhibited. It was a bit constrained in your playing. You were quite economical with your movements. It was monotonous. It was holistic. It was eclectic. It was multifaceted. It was weird. It was spontaneous. It was too fast. It was directed. It was static. It was thoughtful. It was unthought. It was improvisatory. It was limp. It was delicate. It didn't convince. It convinced. So there, in a nutshell, when you go to a competition and you, let's say, don't get the result you want and you go to talk to the jury member, there is your translation key between what they tell you they didn't like about your playing and why that same playing aroused a positive reaction from a different juror. Right?
Besides, you often come to the jurors which they don't remember who you are.
Oh God! And they tell you,
and
somebody
and then
else's
and then
program.
and then and this is also but somebody else's program. But then they say something else which is also very relevant to any performance you go. And then you said, you see, you should learn to breathe with the phrase a little more, and always to think where you're going from to where you're going from. Direction, beginning and the end. And this is great because I really feel that they don't remember if I played in this competition or it was somebody else, or they saw me in the bus stop. So
I've had the same
sometimes
Mozart.
it was very funny.
The same Mozart I have had judged by two different jurors at the same competition. Both jurors voted against me. One said, your Mozart was too metronomic. You should play it more free. It is an opera, after all. And a different juror said, your Mozart was too free. You need to practice it with a metronome. We're not even talking about
That's right.
subjective things. Either it's tick tock, or it ain't. But anyway,
Yes,
competitions are
competition.
just
It's a,
one.
it's just it's a combination of circumstances which you are lucky, and the stars are directed
Aligned.
certain way that you gonna succeed or not. Just
There's the competition where you will go and the level is just unbelievably high, and then it's flip a coin because there's five people who are equally worthy of a first prize, and the person who gets it, it's a kind of flip of the coin. You will go to a competition where the jury members have never heard of Saint-Saëns, and still presumed to judge. You will go to a competition where some of the jury members are, uh, you know, sleeping. I literally I sat in a jury of a competition where one of the important members of the jury was audibly asleep. You could hear him snore from
yeah, I
half a
also
hall
saw
away.
something like this. Yeah.
So when you get a good judgment, don't think that you have conquered the world, and when you get a bad judgment, don't think that you are somehow, that you need to give up music and take up street sweeping.
No, but
Um,
I think it's very important that all the young musicians, they always the competition should not change their way. in any case. If it's a success, should just be another challenge to prove that you succeeded for a reason. And if you didn't succeed, so it should be a lesson for some certain things which maybe were wrong or maybe weren't. So you just
I
believe in yourself, continue
I
going.
think there is one thing that I agree with you completely, that competitions, you said the competitions really helped you to be in shape and to be prepared for your other activities as well as concertmaster, as
Yeah,
first violinist.
definitely.
I agree with this completely, and I also agree with the idea that any kind of judged situation may produce different results, but not necessarily radically different results. The people who are in the final rounds of international competitions tend to be, once you start doing the circuit, you find the same group of names that meet each other in every competition. And we all meet one another in the final round.
Mhm.
And as Mariusz Patira, Paganini First Prize, you remember him? The guy with the Mozart
That
laugh,
was, yeah.
the Polish violinist. He said it very accurately. He said, "Today I am first and you are sixth, and tomorrow I am sixth and you are first." The key for me, the key accomplishment, the one that meant the most to me, is to consistently make it into the final round, which meant that all of these different judges, with all of their different tastes and all of their different political agendas, they all agreed that they could not eliminate me. They could then do whatever they wanted to me in the finals, but before then they could not really eliminate me and have it look
Mhm.
right. I think it's probably the same thing,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
here I want you to tell me. Probably the same thing when you did all the auditions as concertmaster, because you were concertmaster of multiple orchestras.
Yeah, but here it's even worse because okay, it's better in a way because politics, not politics. Here, orchestra is interested in getting the best. You know, they want the best concertmaster, and they want someone good to be there to lead the orchestra and to be there for them. Not the international competition. Whoever wins, it would be great. But then
What happens
it's
after?
not
Yeah.
what happens after. Now, what happens after is their life, the orchestra's life, everyday life. So they choose a concertmaster who will lead them every day. So I must say that here, difference is in the system of judging. First of all, in British orchestras, they find the competitions are mostly open. Uh, they
Open meaning
listen to
not
the
behind a
whole
screen.
program. Yeah, not behind the screen. They listen to you. They ask you to play Mozart concerto, Romantic concerto. Some of them ask Bach, but not often. Then they ask solos, repeat this, a little bit Scheherazade, a little bit Brahms one, Helden Leben. Fantastic. Okay. Some ask for tutti. And 25 minutes open, and then they say, okay, we call you. And then they decide whether they want to try you in the programs.
Hmm.
So, like this, then it's called trial. So you go for the programs with them, and then after a while, they would consider taking a decision. But that could take forever because they could take for years. And even in a normal time, not even COVID period. Okay, I was lucky to win the trial for London Symphony Orchestra last year, but unlucky that they
That
didn't
COVID hit
start
just
yet
when.
the trial. So I still waiting for my first program there. So, but this
Wait, wait.
is
Let
this is
explain
interesting
this.
and
Explain this
good
just for a
system
moment.
in
Let's just explain this for a moment. You played the auditions and won the auditions for the London Philharmonic, Philharmonia, for the London
Symphony
Symphony,
Orchestra, London
for the
Symphony
London Symphony
Orchestra.
Orchestra. You got the audition in 2019, right?
2020 in January.
2020. So months, 2 months before the lockdowns began with COVID. And as of now, April 2021,
Yes.
14, no, what is it, 16 months later, you are still waiting for your first program play as concertmaster.
Yeah, but yeah, so all the orchestras are
Of course.
shut down now. Concerts, and as London is in a particular difficult situation, but
Oh,
there is a hope
I don't mean to say
because
that this is. I don't mean to say that this is outrageous. I'm pointing out to viewers that under extraordinary circumstances like COVID, it may happen that you
mm,
will wait 16, 24, 36
yeah.
months.
But this is what is when you take an audition at British orchestras, you should know that this is not a job which you can count starting from the next season having a salary. It's you should think
3 years.
ahead, and you should you yes yes it will take time. You should be patient. I did win trials in London Philharmonic Orchestra before, but they decided to. I did 5 programs with them as concertmaster, and it was a fantastic experience. They were fantastic orchestras, London Philharmonic. Um, um, they decided to take co-principal just and then they eliminated the position, as well as BBC Philharmonic. I played with them 4 programs, and they decided not to take anyone, just to cancel the position to have just concertmaster, only one concertmaster. So in Central Europe situation, it's much more difficult. The audition in a way brings you job on that day which you win the competition. You can sign a contract from next September or June or whatever, and then you have a job. But the problem is that it's in 3 or 4 or sometimes 5 rounds, like in the United States, where one round, or maybe 2, or maybe 3 rounds are behind the screen. And then every orchestra is different because some orchestras are it's just a commission of the first players, like 10 people who are listening, and some orchestras, like in Europe, they all come. So it's like 70, 80 people voting, like all, including percussion and brass players and stuff. So there, to pass first round becomes
A huge
almost
accomplishment.
unbelievable luck. uh, yeah, so it's and it doesn't say if you passed once, it doesn't say at all that you'll pass second time. So these competitions, it's even somewhat more difficult. But what's very strange in the behind the screen things, people who get most voices behind the screen, then openly without the screen, they don't get any voices. It's just sometimes completely.
Well, because I
Uh,
also think it, leaving cynicism and leaving politics out of it, some people have a stage presence, and some people play beautifully but have none.
no, but it's not only that. It's just that there is certain way to pass the first round behind the screen, which some people do, and then after this they don't convince as personalities for the job of concertmaster. And I repeat, politics here are not much involved, or much less than in violin competitions, which we took part. Here, there are no teachers. The orchestra wants the best.
Right.
There's
The
someone
orchestra wants somebody who can really
who will be
lead.
there for them. Yeah, who can lead, who can they can trust and count.
I should ask
So that's for
because
sure.
the Aviv Quartet has changed personnel over the years. Also, I should ask about the audition trial procedures that you guys go through.
Well, this is difficult. This is yeah, because this is a family. This is um, how to do this. But usually we asked people to prepare a sort of repertoire, which for us was important to see the person well. in some solos, in some different repertoire, and also something which we played on that moment, and we could because if the quartet is other three members, I don't know or don't so hot on the pieces that is ruining the competition project process. So we ask them to prepare certain things, and then we try to maybe rehearse. Some of them we try to give concerts and to try them in a concert and then to see how it goes. Yeah, but
Do
sometimes
you
we didn't have
vote?
enough concerts to try, and also we didn't want. No, we have to agree. We other
It's
three
not a matter
should
of
agree.
two like and one doesn't like, and you can still make that work. You can't.
No, no, we should not. No, no, no. The idea was not to that we would. Maybe we should discuss, and we have our doubts. We should openly discuss here. Everyone should agree
Yeah.
on certain point. Maybe not 100%. Not like okay, everyone is similar enthusiastic about certain person, but then as life proved, um, things were better. Uh, no, but this is hard. Aviv Quartet changed, yeah, changed personal quite a lot. But now we are happy that since what is it, 5 years, and the same team, and we working and the same people, and they're all here in Switzerland. So we don't work over the borders. So now it's stable.
It's something else that might be eye opening for some viewers. And by the way, for viewers, I do want to remind you that while we are running out of time, we are still open for questions at any point. So don't wait your turn. Please jump in with questions. It is eye opening for some viewers, I think, to remember that many of the string quartets on whose recordings we grew up changed personnel repeatedly. It is an exception, the quartet that stays together in its original composition. I'm thinking of the Brodskys right now.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking of the fact that by the end, the Brodskys had changed first violinists 3 or 4 times. The only member of the original ensemble was Dima Berlinsky. Am I thinking Berlinsky, right? The cellist. Valentin.
Trotsky,
Valentin. Valentin. Sorry.
Borodin Quartet.
Yeah. I said
Borodin
Brodsky, I meant
Quartet.
Borodin, and I said Dima, but I meant Valentin.
Yeah,
So
Borodin Quartet. But they changed several times, and now it's of course not Valentin Berlinsky. Now it's other people. So
it,
yeah, yeah. So
it
but
is
Amadeus Quartet stayed 40. They stayed what 40 years in the
the
same
original,
ensemble without any changes.
but it
Yeah.
is, I think, the sort of mix of priorities, the excellence of the player, the fact that that particular flavor of excellent fits that particular flavor of quartet,
And the
the mix of
life
personalities.
changes, life projects. You know, somebody just changes direction, and nowadays it's even more often. People just open for other things. Now it's another world.
So if somebody, says, okay, you are moving not to London, where you can make it to Geneva by train in a matter of an hour or two, but you are moving to San Francisco,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden you have to figure out how the Aviv Quartet can continue to function, across half a planet.
Hmm. That's no, that's we did it, yeah, when the Aviv Quartet was like 11 years together, and then we did overseas and projects and stuff. First of all, it's not easy; it's really difficult, but it needed to be all the repertoire done with these four people, and then we could. But to rehearse and to build the repertoire overseas, it's impossible. Members should be around the
Geographical.
same city, the same country. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
What I also try to let my students start thinking about is the sort of prosaic realities about chamber group, quartet, trio, etc., in terms of finances. So, as a
Mm.
soloist, if I get a call and I'm told, okay, we are willing to pay you this amount, out of which you have to pay your manager, out of which you have to pay for your airlines, your hotels. So the calculation is very fast, and what seems to be a very attractive fee, suddenly you realize you're taking home a lot less. How does it work for a quartet? Are the fees just four times larger? Do presenters take into account the fact that you
Uh,
have not one but five airline tickets because we need one for the cello?
no, no one takes in the account this. Certain organizations they cover the flights, they cover the hotel. Usually, we try to negotiate with them this, or the fees are not the most attractive point of chamber music band because there are much more quartets today than it was when we started 25 years ago. Um, it's much more difficult also to fill in the chamber music hall, which is not, 3,000 seats. It's not a symphonic hall, so it's always rather small, rather chamber 300, 200 sometimes seats. So yeah, but I would say like this: don't think about the fees at the first moment of the chamber group. It's the most important thing is to work together, to have the will to build this, and don't expect that this will pay your bills right away or something. Uh, at certain point, competitions again they help. Some concerts, some agents, if you're lucky.
Aviv
Uh,
won the Melbourne competition.
we won several. We won Charles Hannon competition in Holland first prize, Amadeus prize. We won second prize in Prague Spring. Then it was a Grand Prix in Melbourne, 1999. And funny enough, we never got back to Australia after being in the Grand Prix and four special prizes. Never
That's
miraculously and very sad that we didn't. I don't know the reviews. Everything was great. But life is difficult and sometimes unpredictable. We won also Bordeaux competition 2003, second prize without first, and there we did quite a lot in French festivals in Forjourne de Nantes and Aix-en-Provence, all the great
you.
festivals
Do you
as
find that
well.
I was going to say, do you find that the fact that you are European based also gives presenters financial reality? I mean, it costs a presenter in America more to present the Aviv Quartet in America, or for that matter, in Australia.
But is no, but as I understood in the United States, everything when we worked quite a lot. Uh, the fees were including all the charges. So we were getting the hotel, we were getting the
Mm-hmm.
flights, overseas flight, and in the end, the agent sitting at his office would get more than each one of us after the tour,
Yes.
counting the expenses and travel and food and whatever.
The
But again, money is not it's not all we are talking about. The quartet is most fantastic and most amazing formation where nothing like this can satisfy you artistically in the on the long term. You know, of course, yeah, it's great to play with orchestra. Sometimes we got how many already do we have opportunities to play with great orchestras in a great hall? Uh, you can count on the fingers of one arm, maybe the concerts you really remember. but the quartet, I think I did more than 1,500. I didn't count, but a lot. And yeah, I remember several of them very good.
I I've always envied you for the aspect that a quartet family offers that the soloist experience doesn't, because fundamentally the solo lifestyle, whether you're soloing with orchestras, recitals, a mix of both, the solo lifestyle is by yourself. Even if you're doing recitals with a pianist, it's basically by yourself. And so often it's not a duo partnership with a pianist. It is a soloist with you know a supporter, a partner for that evening. But the concert was obtained by your manager. The practicing was done by yourself. Compare that to a quartet that can sit and discuss what other performance opportunities there might be in a particular time or a particular area. Compare that to the practicing that you do separately, compared to the rehearsals with a quartet.
But you're taking it positively about there are quartets which they can stand each other and they can sit on the same table after the concert goes.
How does
They
that
cannot
work?
sit on the same table and the rest. Yeah, they take different elevators, but in more in the old times, I must say that most of the groups which I see today, they do spend time together, and most of the times in quartet. Yes, we had some difficult maybe discussions and certain disagreements which we didn't want to see each other after the concert, but it was rather exception than
Than the rule.
a rule. What It's a good question here from Rory. What's the most important thing for a string quartet to succeed? Is it relation between the players? Is the most important one? So, of course, relation. But the most important thing for quartet to succeed is not winning competitions, not to be strong individually or as a group. Of course, you should be strong individually. Of course, you should be strong as a group, and you should normally win some competitions which allows you to play concerts. But most important thing is to look for the same future for players. And this is difficult stuff because you cannot decide for other adults, okay, when you're 23, for example, you're doing okay, you're in the academy, you're growing up together as your students. But then if you, for example, 30, you cannot decide for other adults, okay, no, you're gonna stay here, living here in this city, and you will do this. Um, Most important is when the quartet, four members of the quartet, they see the future of the quartet the same way. And when it's not, it's better to think about changing. It's like it's like carriage. Imagine carriage with four wheels. There is four wheels, and there is one wheel which, for example, smaller, bigger, or thicker, or something.
You
So
you have
faster
that with
carriage,
shopping carts.
faster it goes, the one wheel starts to be more shaky and finally falls. Then the carriage should stop to replace the wheel, and maybe then it will create another three. When another four wheel will be a little bit different. So the most important, the four wheels will be approximately of the same size, power, flexibility, and then they will go the same direction. Yeah, and not one will be like this because then it will fall far, and will
And the
also
reset, the reset, the attaching of the new wheel is incredibly time consuming.
mm,
The
yeah,
auditioning of the
yeah.
new wheel, the testing out of the new wheel.
hmm
Yeah.
And one of the groups, without mentioning when they changed the member, everyone told them after they did this take a decision, they told them, "Oh, you did a mistake. It's not a good choice. You were much better before. You didn't choose well." And they didn't listen to anyone. And today, it's one of the greatest groups in the world, and they just say that it's good that we believed in our decision and ourselves. And so. It's important that the quartet has its identity and goes for it.
Yeah, the
So
uniformity of vision that you're talking about is the quartet's identity. I mean, some people might call it a brand, but I think it is more in the same way that a violinist's sound is recognizable and a mixture of things. What you do with your bow, what you do with your left hand, what you do with your vibrato, what you do with your phrasing. That is all part of your fingerprint. And similarly, the quartet's fingerprint is going to be the personalities and the playing, and especially, and like you say, the most important, the vision of where all four of you are going from today to next year, from today to next decade.
yes, even though even I look back, I believe that the sound of the group has changed with all the changes of members, and so finally now today it sounds a little different yet from what was 20 years ago, but it's okay. Like sound of a soloist can evaluate and be different a little bit. When we hear early recordings of Menuhin and later recordings of Menuhin, it's also very different. Or
I don't know if if your dad ever told you. My mom told me that David Oistrakh, when she was studying with him, became very ashamed of his earlier recordings. This is David Oistrakh, and this is in his
yeah,
60s.
yeah, I know that he was ashamed of his first Bach sonata solo when he went every city he went. He first of all went to the record shop and bought
Mm-hmm.
every record of his Bach to throw it into the garbage. Yeah, that's
Back when there were actual physical recordings and you could do that.
yeah. And there was no Apple Music or whatever
There,
Spotify you're listening to.
there's actually totally irrelevant to David Oistrakh, but in terms of buying up recordings, there is a famous recording by Boris Christoph. Are you familiar with this? Christoph,
Which one?
the bass baritone, did recordings. I think this is back in the
Yeah, yeah.
'60s of the most famous arias, among which is Kanchak's aria, and from Prince Igor. And in the aria, to save a little money, they had Christoph sing the short phrase that Igor sings. «И сеть крепка, и ястребы надежный, да соколу в неволе не живется». And they recorded this in Paris. Christoph was Bulgarian, Romanian, Bulgarian, I think. He did not speak Russian as a first language.
Yes, I
You know this
know
story,
this.
yes?
Yes, I know this story.
So in
Yeah.
so in that recording,
Some of the
there.
guys are underage.
Oh, I'm not going to
Attention.
sing the actual words, but there was a pianist in Paris, a
Yeah,
Russian
yeah, what
emigre.
he said.
He convinced Christoph that the word живется, which means to live, was incorrect. That in ancient
Yeah,
12th,
yeah,
so he replaced it with a different word, which means something entirely.
I know, no.
And that was the way it was
Yes.
recorded. And the
Hmm.
pianist who played this practical joke on Christoph that made it onto the recording, which you can now find on YouTube,
Yeah, yeah.
that pianist called a friend of his in then Leningrad and said, "Listen, I have pulled off the most amazing thing. I know that you hate the head of Melodia Records. I have given you a present." And the friend, the pianist friend in Leningrad, was the one who called all of his friends all over the Soviet Union to go into any record store they could find, to find every copy of this recording, to buy every copy of this recording. And only when he knew that every single copy of the first edition had sold out, then he called ahead of Melodia and broke the news that there was this bad word. So
Mm,
he managed to do back in the
yeah.
60s what now the internet does automatically, which is to make your mistake live
Mm,
forever.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, as far as the changes to your perception, the changes that Oistrakh felt in his 60s, wouldn't you say that that is something that every performer is going to have? Quartets, orchestras,
Well,
soloists.
that's depending on the conscious of the artist, like how he's. I know that, for example, Jill Shaham is never listening to his own recordings, and Joshua Bell listening only to his. recordings. Well, that what I am kidding, but no, but s- sometimes people don't even listen to their all recordings. For me, it's sometimes difficult to hear, especially studio recordings, um, where I know that nothing can be changed, and this is studio. Certain tempos are weird for me. I would not play them like this today. But no, but I believe it's normal. It's just that Oyster, in a way of stylistic point of view from Bach again, he was just recording it back in 30s.
It was a
Yeah,
very different musical landscape in the 30s. In the 30s, academic Bach
exactly.
informed by historical study was inconceivable.
Mhm.
I think for the violinist
Yeah,
watching,
of course, in the 50s.
listen to Joachim playing the Bach G
Yeah.
minor adagio. It's a different planet. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So yeah, but Oistrakh was yeah he was very noble man and player, so he
And
couldn't live with this.
self-analyzing. I mean, what you described as doing before, the Tchaikovsky competition, where you recorded yourself every day, you forced yourself to listen to it, which is so much harder than forcing yourself to practice. It is,
Hmm.
if I had to choose between forcing myself to practice or forcing myself to listen, I'd force myself to practice 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. The the same sort of thing was something that, according to Mom at least, was natural to Oistrakh. Some Richter, I'm thinking now, some performers like that are so demanding of themselves and so analytical, um, that they will obviously retain their level and be different from decade to decade.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. But then, for example, with Minuchin, for example, it's completely different. In 30s, he played the way which till today I don't know. Like it's so extraordinary and
It's
musical
electric.
and timing wise sound. It's just amazing. I mean, and that much later on, he played different. And this is like being a question for me how he allowed himself to to continue
I think
performing.
Menuhin though is a different example because we're talking about something that was uh, almost noticeably a physical change in terms of the steadiness of his bowing and so on, um, which suggests something to do with physiology rather than artistic reconsideration. I'm thinking of somebody like Anne-Sophie Mutter, whose recent recordings are so unusual and fascinating, um, and so different from the Anne-Sophie that made her, debut under Karajan.
But those are fantastic too. But maybe not everything, but I remember myself. I was 12 when I heard first time Mendelssohn Concerto by her. It was just so inspiring. I must say it was so new. It was something, and I must say that from my experience, once I heard her play live Beethoven Concerto back in 2000 with Concerto Orchestra and Kurt Masur, it like in life, that was the most beautiful sound I ever heard from a violinist. You really, literally could touch it in the air where I was sitting, and it was it was a miracle. Yeah, it was.
And of course, the recording can't convey that. There's no way.
Nah, yeah, that's no. But your video of Dvorak Concerto with Berliner Phil, it's just fantastic. I don't know. It's so she's great. She's just amazing.
There is one thing that I don't talk about often enough, either in these podcasts or with my students, and that is the absolutely essential uh, requirement that a young musician listen to others. As much to learn what you don't want as to learn what you do want, but mostly to build up that library in your head that you have, you know, think about how many performances you can recall, at the drop of a hat. You
Mm,
hear a particular, student play the Glazunov for you, and suddenly you have five different Glazunovs to which you are comparing it.
mm. When I was 17 and 18, my friends uh, in Israel often laughed at me and mocked that I listen only to violin music. They always we had this Walkman, I don't remember this, with mixed tapes,
Mm-hmm.
which when I was doing army service in military service in Israel, I took Walkman always with this ear
Mm-hmm.
ear heads like this, small ones, so no one can see me if there is a control. So during the patrol, I was listening, and um, and I listened so much recorded mixtapes from the radio, which I did myself when we came to Israel. Obviously, we didn't have money to buy all these new CDs, and so I recorded from radio all this library of Hafiz, Spellman, and stuff. And I listened, and people were laughing at me. Today, in a master class, I asked, somebody played Saint-Saëns third concerto. I asked if they're familiar with Zeno Francescatti recording of this. They said, who?
Yeah.
And the young generation, like they just like Bruch, I don't know, Isaac Stern recording. Isaac, we heard something about
I
him, but we
I'm
don't recall Bruch.
yeah I'm shocked.
So
You can mention the
Lalo, Bruch,
gods. You can mention Kogan. You can mention Yasha Heifetz. They've heard of, but you can mention Kogan. You can mention they've heard of Oistrakh. You
yeah,
can mention Francescatti. You can mention Milstein. Milstein. You can mention Rabin, and
Zigeti.
Sigeti. Um, I'm astonished. Sharing. I'm
No,
astonished
but
by the.
they know the names, but they do not interested in like really going to listen to that particular. For example, like every second student, I think every student of my class sooner or later plays Sibelius Concerto.
Of course.
But like for example, there is recording of Perelman of Sibelius Concerto, which everyone looks at me like Perelman. I said, yeah, Sibelius Concerto. Yes, go look at it. And this is fantastic. And Perlman is still there, like, and talking about Brahms concerto with Isaac Stern. Yeah, Isaac Stern is the most as painful for me somehow because I feel that young generation have completely vanished him from the references list. And Isaac, it was such inspiration for me, and I was lucky to know him and to be as a quartet. We were really appreciated by him, and he invited us to his 80th birthday in Carnegie in 2000, 1 year before he died. So, but okay, without that, before we met him, I listened to his recordings like great. It was one of Brahms sonatas and even Tchaikovsky concerto, which everyone tend to think, okay, this is a little Western approach to Tchaikovsky. But first of all, Western, he plays original score without any cuts. So unlike Oyster, for example, who
Yeah.
we like a lot, and he takes him as a reference, but he takes our cut. So Stern does the more original in a way, yeah, the reading of the piece. And
But if you think
so,
of
but
a
I
violinist
believe
who
he
is
was one of
who is
great.
not mistakable for somebody else, there are very few violinists. I mean, I can identify very few violinists almost instantly, but the three that I can guarantee that I will identify are Stern, Heifetz, and oops, uh, Stern, Heifetz. Well, actually, Ansafi probably. Um, I was just thinking of the other Oistrakh to some degree. Heifetz, that laser beam sound. Stern that totally unique both sound and phrasing, the sound on the E string especially, Oistrakh, the sweep of the bow, the
But it's great.
vibrato.
Most of the stuff Western does. I mean, like really, maybe my daughter always asks me who is my favorite violinist. It's very difficult, but I say maybe Oyster. After all, most of what he played, I like maybe in his art, and it's been what 46 years since he passed
Seven.
away.
He passed in 74.
Yeah, in October.
Yeah,
So yeah, so it's been what 46 years, and still today he remains a reference for everyone, and this is says tells something
I
how
think
great it is.
Rory just asked another question about exactly this. The what are your thoughts? She said she asks about the old school. I think it's exactly this, that there's much more identifiable, unique elements within the old schools of playing, whether that was down to how these great violinists studied in a much more localized environment, less globalized, whether it was access to recordings in their day versus access when you and I were kids versus access right now. Even when I was growing up, in order to have access, you did the mixtapes from the radio. I would go to the library to get recordings.
But one thing which I think very difficult, which very different from old times, and I think you actually uh, one of very rare violinists who still keep the tradition of this short violin pieces, very characteristic. Because today in the recitals we don't hear much of this. We hear great sonatas, we have great fantasies, concertos in big hall, but we don't have already small pieces. And the students in during their uh, years of studying in the academy, in the college, or in pre-college, they don't do much. And I read in the plan of repertoire by Oyster how much short piece, how many of those he did. And Yankelevich also spoke a lot about this, that actually the style and the individual approach of a sound of a student, it very much built up by the small things, by Debussy, by Ravel, by Tchaikovsky, small, not immediately Waltz Scherzo and stuff, but Waltz Sentimental, or to do the arrangements of
Even
Heifetz,
the melody from
melody,
Souvenir.
melody,
Yeah,
for example, but melody is like okay, but so many great things, Wagner, Album Blatt, I don't know, short pieces by Glazunov.
I
So it
divide in
actually
my mind. I divide them into the big works, the sonatas, the multi movement works, the showpieces. Introduction and Rondo is a showpiece. Revel Tsigan is a showpiece. I like to have
it's
some of those.
big, but those are big things,
But then there's the salon pieces, and that's
yeah.
what you're describing. The Rachmaninoff romance that the first time I ever heard it was my mother's recording, and I don't hear people
Oh
play
yeah, by the way, I heard her play it.
it.
She
I know
played
she's
it
my mom, but
fantastic.
still, God.
She
Um,
played it fantastic. I'm lucky that I was in New York on that concert with Bacchanale when she did it.
yeah, it is the 5 minute salon piece that has
Under
still,
5 minutes, yeah.
yeah, and it still has
And I
that
think the
stamp of.
young, yeah, I think the young musicians of today, students, they should pay much more attention to this, much more than right away attacking the uh, orchestra excerpts from the first year of college that everyone is doing, Mendelssohn's Scherzo and Don Juan first page. No, I think it's much more important than the young musicians. They eager to learn all this repertoire of short pieces and
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 and let's put it in context when you are talking about the differences between playing Don Juan and playing Midsummer Night's Dream, the difference in sound and color and style, etc. Your teacher or you yourself might go, crazy from trying to put words around why it is that Strauss is different from Mendelssohn. But if you've played such a large assortment of bonbons, you have a basis for comparison. Oh, the Midsummer Night's Dream. Well, that's a lot like the Elgar Capricieuse. Totally different pieces, totally different composers, but that elegance, that lightness, that's the same.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So in today what we have it much less, but I would really encourage the students to do it much more.
and especially, I think if you are recording yourself, as Sergey was talking about for the Tchaikovsky, if you're recording yourself and you're listening to yourself, one of the things that stops me from doing that, aside from the dread of hearing myself and finding all the things I overlooked, is time. I just recorded the Strauss Sonata for a local small concert with a pianist I played with all the time. I finally found time to listen to it 4 days later, and only once. I haven't gone through it in detail. Whereas and I'm, in that one time I was like, okay, so I don't like this, I have to look out for that. But ask me now if I remember all those things, I don't. Whereas for any one of the little bonbons that we recorded that same day in an insane 6-hour session, um, for all of them, I can almost describe measure by measure what I did and didn't like. So your ability to uh, observe your own playing accurately and specifically does have a relationship, I think, with the length of the piece.
Also, yeah, definitely.
Speaking of time restrictions, I have eaten up an hour and a half of your Saturday night. You must be getting kind of sleepy too. Um, I
No,
wanted
fine.
still to discuss with you the words of wisdom you might have for parents and students when it comes to conservatories and teachers, but that is another 5 hours of conversation right there. So my request to you is, Sergey, would you please come back and join us again at some point in the near future?
Absolutely, with pleasure. We can do it again, and we can talk again about stuff. And some people who watch today and they have specific questions about studies, about development, and I think being a parent of a violinist or a musician or a talented kid, it's very difficult. It's always to take some decisions, and
Life
those
altering
decisions
decisions.
are difficult. And if yeah, all the time decisions at every point, and decisions are important to take them right, to respect the teacher, to know the way, no, because some parents really able to ruin their kid's career by certain moves. So if some people who watched us today they have specific questions to me, I will be happy to answer those next time we are
This
on air.
this
And
conversation this
yeah,
conversation will
definitely.
remain on YouTube and will remain on Facebook. I know, for example, Rodi had a follow up question about the short pieces we were just talking about, but something like that we can answer questions like that in writing on Facebook.
Yeah,
I'll,
definitely.
I'll send in a list of my favorite bonbons. You do the same, and maybe I'll steal some of
Hmm.
yours.
And I steal some of yours.
For example, did you know about the Chopin Ysaÿe transcription of the valse,
No, I actually didn't know that one.
or the ballade, which I have from manuscript,
Hmm,
or the
nice.
little thing that I did of the Heifetz transcription of White Christmas?
Oh, that's nice.
Again, I have that from
No,
from
I
the
know, I
manuscript.
know, I know that you are very much into it. That I always liked it
I'll
when
just have
you
to
did.
send you some of these.
I still remember the disc you did with the three violinists there, which
You know
was a
what?
great idea.
That's a project to talk about. Whether you would ever want to do a three violinists Carmen.
Yeah, once definitely we should do it. Would be nice.
Well, for today, I'm gonna wrap up. Um, sorry, just checking the questions. For today, I'm gonna wrap up on that note. Sirosha, it's wonderful to catch up with you personally, even if it's publicly. Um,
Yes.
let's
Yes,
not wait too
great
long.
pleasure.
Let's not wait too long to do this again.
Yes, that's not absolutely with pleasure. Whenever you feel like we can do it again.
My pleasure. Спасибо.
Thank you very much.